Good morning, everybody. My name is Bob Genheimer, and I am the George Rieveschl Curator of Archaeology at the Cincinnati Museum Center. Most of us are staying in these days, and for good reason. And because you can't come to see our content at Cincinnati Museum Center, we're going to bring that content to you. Many of you are familiar with Ask a Curator Day each September, where the public asks questions of all the curators at the museums and at museums around the country. We're going to do that right here. We've assembled a bunch of those questions, and we're going to answer them one at a time. So you're ready? Let's do it. So question number one, what does the George Rieveschl Curator of Archaeology really mean? In other words, who is George Rieveschl? Well, George was a chemist, an inventor, and philanthropist who called Cincinnati home. In the 1930s, George earned a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD in chemistry at the University of Cincinnati. But the story gets really interesting in the early 1940s. While at UC, he and a student discovered an antihistamine that was very powerful, whose name is so long it has 19 syllables. Let's just call it Benadryl. George went on to become vice president at Parke-Davis Pharmaceuticals in Detroit, and he became a philanthropist in the Cincinnati area, and you've probably seen his name all over the place. He was interested in archaeology. He came and visited us, and he wanted to endow the curator position, the curator of archaeology at the Cincinnati Museum Center, and that's what he did. So the next time that you use Benadryl, and most of you do, I don't want you to think just about the healing effects of the antihistamines. Think also of George as a philanthropist and archaeology and the help he's giving to many people. Question number two, why did you become an archaeologist? Well, I can tell you it's not about Indiana Jones because I was an archaeologist long before Indiana Jones movies came out. I was always interested in the past. As a child, I grew up next to the University of Cincinnati, and I would scour the woods for bottles and bricks, all sorts of things, and I would bring them home, and my mother, who was very patient, would throw them right back out, and I would just bring more of them home. But it didn't really gel to me what I wanted to do until I was a freshman at UC, and I took intro to history courses and intro to anthropology courses. I don't remember the history course, but I do remember the anthropology course where they taught archaeology. And it was that moment I realized what I really wanted to do was study the past, but I wanted to get my hands dirty doing it. A question I'm often asked is, what has changed in archaeology since I started in the 1970s? And I'd have to say just about everything. All it has to do with technology, pretty much. So let's look at a couple of things that have really changed the way we do our job. First of all is remote sensing. You guys are all familiar with aspects of remote sensing, magnetometry, ground penetrating radar, LiDAR, which is light direction and ranging, that will show contour intervals on the surface. All these things have helped us see what's underneath the ground or on the surface of the ground in ways that we could never do before. Another thing is better accuracy in absolute dating, or in our case, radiocarbon dating. These dates are much more accurate today with smaller sigmas, so we can really control for time, which is what archaeologists need to do. But there's also a whole bunch of other things. Computers have gotten better, GIS, GPS, elemental analysis, isotope data. All these things make our jobs easier, and we're going to get better in the future. Question number four, how do you get your collections? There are many different ways that we receive collections at Cincinnati Museum Center. Perhaps the biggest one is field collections. As the name implies, we generate our own collections by going out and digging sites in the Cincinnati area. We also get collections through donations. A lot of what we have was given to us by amateurs or other professionals in the last 150 years. And finally, we get collections through exchanges from other institutions. These are collections that no longer meet their mission, but they meet ours. Question number five, what is your favorite part of being an archaeologist? Or a similar question that's asked, what makes you happy about your job? Really, the simple answer is variety. I do something different every day. You may find me supervising volunteers or interns, cataloging, photographing, writing a report, or working on an exhibit. So unlike some people, I always look forward to going to work every day. Question number 6, and this is a question we get asked all the time. What is the oldest thing you've ever found? So let's go back to the late 1970s. I was doing some survey work, walking some fields near Morrow in Warren County, Ohio. And when I looked down and saw the end of a spear point that was sticking out of a plow scar, and the end of this spear point had a flute scar flake removed from it. So fluted channels on spear points are diagnostic for the Paleo-Indian period. And that's approximately 11 to 13,000 years ago. So when I picked up this point, it had lay there for as long as 13 millennia. That's pretty cool. Question number 7. Why do you go back to the same dig site year after year? This is actually an excellent question, and let's see if I can give you some insight on why we do this. So let's look at the Han site where the Museum Center has been digging for the last 12 years. So why do we keep going back there? Well, I think first, and this applies to almost any site, a long-term project allows you to answer more questions because you learn as you go and you're in the same place. I think second, in the case of Han, a village site is a long-term occupation where most of what a culture does is confined to within the village. So staying put within the village allows us to answer more questions as well. And then third, sometimes the site has all the amenities you need. The Han site is close to the museum, it has restrooms, and is a secure location. You really can't beat that. Question number 8. What is the strangest thing you were surprised to find in your collections? I really like this question. There are a lot of things that could qualify for this in a museum setting, but let me give you one example. This item comes from our ethnographic collections, and I had heard of these but had never seen one. One day I was going through some boxes and I found a stuffed taxidermied frog playing a guitar. It made me smile and still does to this day. Question number 9. What exhibit would you create if you could create anything? I think, boy, there are a lot of candidates here, but I think I do have a top choice. It would be an archaeology gallery that emphasizes both archaeological and native voices to tell the story. We all know for too long native voices have been excluded, and it is time to tell a much better story by incorporating both viewpoints. But here's a spoiler alert. We are beginning to work on just that exhibit at the Cincinnati Museum Center. So look out for it in the not too distant future. It'll be there. Question number 10. Are there items you can't display for various reasons? Well, the simple answer is yes. First of all, we do not exhibit Native American human remains and have not done so for many decades. Second, there are Native American sacred items or items of cultural patrimony which we will not exhibit. And third, Native American grave goods are also considered sensitive, and we only exhibit these with the consent and advice of our Native American tribal partners.